Good morning, students. Today's class is on central nervous system, in which I will teach about meninges, cerebrospinal fluid, and meningitis, and different brain tumors in brief. Now come to the different layers of brain. Altogether, these are called meninges. Three layers of meninges are there. One is dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. Dura mater composed of periosteal, which is towards the side of skull, and meningeal layer, that is the inner layer close to the brain. Next is arachnoid layer. This is also called spider web like, and pia mater, that is delicate, follows the different convolutions of brain. Now the cerebrospinal fluid formation and its circulation. CSF is formed at the choroid plexuses and by the cells lining the ventricles. Normal blood-brain barrier is important for the normal chemistry of the cerebrospinal fluid. Its rate of formation is 500 ml per day. A mechanism of formation is selective ultrafiltration of plasma, active secretion by epithelial membranes. Now the mechanism of excretion. Absorption occurs at the arachnoid villi, protruding through the dura to the venous sinuses of the brain to the blood stream. Now the pathway of CSF flow. First they formed in the lateral ventricles, next come to the foramen of Monro to the third ventricle. Through aqueduct of Sylvius they come to the fourth ventricle, then the foramen of Magendie and Lusca, they come to the subarachnoid space of brain and spinal cord, and then they get reabsorbed into the venous sinuses. So this is the pathway of CSF flow. Now what are the functions of CSF? Mechanical cushion for the brain, support to the brain, source of nutrition to the brain, excretion of metabolic waste products from the brain, intracerebral transport medium, control of chemical environment of the brain, and auto-regulation of intracranial pressure. So these are the functions of cerebrospinal fluid. Now composition of cerebrospinal fluid, mostly water 99%, only 1%, about 1% is solid. Among solid, organic, inorganic and cells are there. Now you see, this is the lumbar puncture needle by which we can get cerebrospinal fluid from the subarachnoid space. This is the process of lumbar puncture. You see, we come to the cerebrospinal fluid, we come to the subarachnoid space and get the cerebrospinal fluid, and the lumbar puncture needle is inserted in between the L3 and L4 spines, and in the demonstration class you will get the actual idea about the needle. You can see the actual needle, and this is the process of lumbar puncture. Now what are the indications for lumbar puncture? Now diagnostic indication: central nervous system infections like meningitis, encephalitis and CNS syphilis, subarachnoid hemorrhages, normal pressure hydrocephalus, these are important. Most important, CNS infection and subarachnoid hemorrhages. Evaluation and diagnosis of inflammatory central nervous system processes like multiple sclerosis, Guillain-Barré syndrome, these are also important. Now some therapeutic purpose, that is infusion of anesthetic or chemotherapeutic drugs or contrast to the spinal canal, and treatment of idiopathic intracranial hypertension, and we draw the cerebrospinal fluid and intracranial pressure is decreased. This is the least common indication of the lumbar puncture. So you should know about the meningitis, that is the infection of the meninges. Now what are the contraindication? Actually before indication you have to know the contraindication. Where not to do the lumbar puncture. Idiopathic or suspicion of increased intracranial pressure due to cerebral mass like brain tumor, cerebral hemorrhage, abscesses, epidural or subdural hematomas, etc. Signs of increased intracranial pressure. Now decreased level of consciousness, patient will be subconscious or unconscious. Focal neurological signs deficits will be there, and mostly we see for papilledema, bilateral ophthalmoscopy, direct ophthalmoscopy, we get the papilledema. So in case of raised intracranial pressure we don't do lumbar puncture process. Now the rationale key, what are the rationale? Lumbar puncture in increased intracranial pressure may cause uncal herniation. The brain herniation may cause in case of intracranial pressure. If we suddenly draw the CSF and suddenly there will be decrease in intracranial pressure and brain will herniate through the foramen magnum. This is very dangerous condition. So we should alert about the signs of intracranial pressure increased. Now the complications. First is the herniation, cardiorespiratory compromise, pain, headache, bleeding, infections of the local site as well as in the CNS, and subarachnoid epidermal cyst, CSF leakage. All these are grave complications of the lumbar puncture. Infections may occur if we do not disinfect the local area before lumbar puncture. Infection is very common, so we should be aware about the aseptic method of the lumbar puncture, and we should use very narrow lumbar puncture needle, otherwise there will be CSF leakage, pain, headache, etc. Now after getting cerebrospinal fluid by lumbar puncture process, we should do different types of examinations of this CSF. Now you should know about the examination. These are the examination we should do for every body fluid, like pleural fluid, like ascitic fluid, like intraarticular fluid, all. For all we should go for physical examination, chemical examination, cytological examination or bacteriological examination. Now examination of CSF, before going to the topic you must know some terminologies, that is the increased glucose level in CSF, that is hyperglycorrhea. Decreased glucose level in CSF, that is hypoglycorrhea. And increased number of white blood cells in CSF is called pleocytosis. If you don't know the normal values of the different chemicals of the or microscopic feature of the CSF, you cannot know whether it is normal or abnormal. So, first, normal physical examination, appearance and color. It will be clear and colorless. pH will be 7.4, that is towards alkaline. Daily secretion is, I told previously, that is 450 to 500 ml per day. Specific gravity is 1006 to 1007. Normal microscopic examination, lymphocyte 1 to 5 per high power field. No other cells are present in normal CSF. Now normal chemical examination, protein 15 to 45 milligram per dl, glucose is 50 to 80 milligram per dl, chloride is 115 to 130 millimole per liter, calcium 1 to 1.4 millimole per liter, phosphorus, magnesium and potassium, all these are also important, but you must know the normal microscopical examination, that is 1 to 5 lymphocyte per high power field, and protein and glucose and chloride. These are very important. Now in microbiological examination, in case of normal CSF, there will be no growth or no bacteria will be present in microbiological examination. The physical examination of CSF. Normal we have learned previously, that is clear and colorless. The viscosity will be equal to water, and color and turbidity of CSF observed only in pathological circumstances. Turbid CSF, there may be presence of bacteria, WBC cells or pus cells suggestive of CNS infection, blood suggestive of hemorrhage, that is subarachnoid or artifactual traumatic tap. Either it may be due to subarachnoid hemorrhage or may be due to faulty technique, that is traumatic tap during lumbar puncture. Red and brown color may be present, blood may be present, and yellow color may be due to jaundice, or that is xanthochromasia, hemoglobin breakdown and pigment present in the CSF. So yellow color may develop due to xanthochromasia after breaking of hemoglobin in the CSF. So normal, clear, colorless CSF is normal. Any color or turbidity is pathological for cerebrospinal fluid. Now what is xanthochromasia or xanthochromia? Xanthochromia refers to a pale pink to yellow color in the supernatant of centrifuged CSF, although other colors may be present. Xanthochromic CSF is pink, orange, yellow owing to RBC lysis and hemoglobin breakdown. Pale pink to orange xanthochromia is observed on lumbar puncture performed 2 to 4 hours after the onset of subarachnoid hemorrhage. So, pale and pink orange xanthochromia may be observed after 2 to 4 hours of subarachnoid hemorrhage. Yellow xanthochromia is derived from bilirubin. It develops 12 hours after the subarachnoid hemorrhage. And brown xanthochromia is seen in the meningeal metastatic melanomas. So, xanthochromia is mostly due to subarachnoid hemorrhage, and maybe the other causes also there, like metastatic melanoma and jaundice, etc. Now you see, the clear fluid is normal CSF and the color is pink to red. That is mostly due to subarachnoid hemorrhage. Now, how will you differentiate between the traumatic tap and subarachnoid hemorrhage? Gross appearance, in case of traumatic tap, blood, more initial tubes and blood clot on standing. But subarachnoid hemorrhage, blood uniform in all tubes. All tubes. Before the hemorrhage is going on inside the subarachnoid space. So, in case of traumatic tap, initial tubes will be more bloody, but in case of subarachnoid hemorrhage, all the tubes will be uniformly bloody and blood does not clot on standing. In centrifugation, clear supernatant will be present in case of traumatic lumbar puncture, but in case of subarachnoid hemorrhage, pink or yellow supernatant will be present. Microscopy, progressive decrease in RBCs count in the latter tubes, and in case of subarachnoid hemorrhage, RBC count uniform in all tubes. CSF pressure will be normal in case of traumatic lumbar puncture. It will be increased in case of subarachnoid hemorrhage. CSF protein is normal in case of traumatic lumbar puncture. Protein is increased in case of subarachnoid hemorrhage. So, red color in the CSF always does not indicate that it is subarachnoid hemorrhage. It may be a traumatic lumbar puncture, but we should differentiate between the two. Now come to the chemical analysis of CSF. Protein, we told previously, and 80% of the plasma derived and 20% intrathecal synthesis occurs in case of protein. Protein mostly low molecular weight, and this is transthyretin, transferritin, immunoglobulin, etc. And reference range is 15 to 45 mg per dl and 150 mg per dl in case of neonates. Now glucose, it is also very important. Need to know plasma value. You know about the plasma value of the glucose. It is 80 to 120 mg per dl normal value, and increased, it is hyperglycemia. In case of traumatic tap, glucose may be increased, decreased in case of hypoglycemia, meningitis, different types of meningitis, tumors, etc. The normal glucose is about 60% compared to the serum level. The protein, normal range, previously I have told 15 to 45, present in very small quantity, that is albumin, globulin pathological conditions. Total protein we get in the sulfosalicylic acid test, and increased level found in the inflammation like meningitis, encephalitis, neoplasia, hemorrhage, uremia, tissue destruction, etc. Now come to the microscopic examination of cerebrospinal fluid. WBC, normal total count WBC in CSF is 1 to 5 lymphocyte per high power field. Normal differential WBC count in the centrifuged cells, that is 62% lymphocytes, 36% monocyte and 2% neutrophils. Increased neutrophil in case of bacterial meningitis, increased lymphocyte in case of aseptic and viral meningitis. RBCs, normally CSF is blood free. RBC in CSF, you may get it in subarachnoid hemorrhage and malignancy, also may be in case of artifactual traumatic tap. Now come to the meningitis. This is the inflammation of meninges. It is the inflammatory process of leptomeninges and CSF in subarachnoid space. Meningoencephalitis means meningitis along with inflammation of brain parenchyma. It occurs mainly due to infections but may occur due to irritant in the subarachnoid spaces. Mainly three types of meningitis occurs: acute pyogenic or bacterial meningitis, chronic tubercular meningitis, and viral meningitis or aseptic meningitis. Acute pyogenic meningitis, that is bacterial meningitis. Organisms are different in the different part of lives. That is neonate responsible bacteria are Escherichia coli, group B streptococci. In case of older age, the other extreme age, the responsible bacteria are Streptococci pneumoniae, Listeria monocytogenes. Young adults, Neisseria meningitidis, and in case of infant, Haemophilus influenzae is important, but due to vaccination, Haemophilus influenzae infection is less common nowadays. Now the signs and symptoms. First is headache, photophobia, that is blurring of vision in bright light, irritability, clouding of consciousness, and neck stiffness, and Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome, that is the adrenal gland atrophy. Now morphology. CSF is purulent. Exudate is evident in the leptomeninges over the surface of the brain. Meningeal vessels are engorged. On microscopic examinations, neutrophils fill the subarachnoid space, predominantly found around the leptomeningeal blood vessels. Gram stain reveal varying number of causative organisms. In fulminant meningitis, inflammatory cells may extend to the substance of brain. Leptomeningeal fibrosis may follow pyogenic meningitis and causes hydrocephalus. Now come to the aseptic meningitis. Aseptic means absence of recognizable organism. That means as it is viral meningitis, no bacterial growth will be present in culture. Now the signs and symptoms of meningeal irritation like headache, photophobia, irritation will be present. Fever, alteration of consciousness will be present. Clinical course is less fulminant than pyogenic meningitis and it is generally self-limiting. In this case, the CSF is sterile and there is pleocytosis with lymphocytes. Now, tuberculous meningitis. Tuberculosis of brain is a part of systemic disease. Organism is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Morphology, first macroscopic. Subarachnoid space contain gelatinous and fibrinous exudate mostly in the base of the brain. There may be discrete white granules on the leptomeninges. Most common pattern of involvement is meningoencephalitis. On microscopic examination, there are mixture of lymphocytes, plasma cells and macrophages. In florid cases, there are presence of well-formed granulomas and giant cells and caseous necrosis. Arteries running through the subarachnoid space and show obliterative end arteritis. Organisms can be seen in acid-fast bacilli. In long standing duration, a dense fibrous adhesive arachnoiditis may be developed. It is most conspicuous around the base of the brain. Another manifestation of disease is development of single well circumscribed intraparenchymal mass, that is the tuberculoma. Tuberculoma. Microscopic examination, central core of caseous necrosis and surrounded by typical tuberculous granulomatous reactions will be present. So, fibrosis, adhesions, all these are important in case of tubercular meningitis. As in other case of tuberculosis, whether there in case of lung there will be adhesion and fibrosis in the pleura, same as that site. See, in case of meninges there will also be also presence of dense fibrous adhesions in the arachnoid space, subarachnoid space, also present in case of tubercular meningitis. Clinical features are same as others, but vomiting is a very important features in case of tubercular meningitis due to more increased intracranial pressure. Headache, malaise, mental confusions are also present. Now, this is very important. This is a comparative chart of different types of meningitis. In case of acute bacterial meningitis, glucose will be low, protein will be high, and cells will be polymorph nuclear cells, that is often more than 300 per millimeter square or cubic millimeter. In case of acute viral meningitis, glucose may be normal or high protein, and cells will be lymphocytes mostly, but the cell count is less than 300 per cubic millimeter. In tubercular meningitis, glucose is low, high protein, and mononuclear or lymphocytes are present. Polymorphs also may be present, lymphocyte, but count is less than 300 per cubic millimeter. So, this is a comparative chart and it is also very important for you see. The appearance in case of pyogenic bacterial meningitis, yellowish or turbid. In case of viral meningitis, it is clear and yellow and viscous in case of tubercular meningitis.